We've curated an all Ivy League panel session. And if the Ivy Leagues are your goal, you will be walking away not only supremely charged and motivated, with all the advice and experiences and insights that our panelists are going to be sharing today, but definitely you will be walking away with a lot more on how to plan and think ahead and surely a stronger chance at being successful at these Ivy League colleges. So once again, thank you all for being here. Just a few housekeeping notes also, that feel free to, post your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer them parallelly. Feel free to, post your questions to any of our panelists. We will try to have the panelists also answer it parallelly, because towards the end, we may fall short of time and, we may not be having a Q&A session. So yeah, with that, a huge welcome and thank you so much to our student panelists for being here. Huge welcome, Alina, Pranav, Samay, Sonakshi, Jia. Pranav, Samay, thank you so much. I think it is, 2 a.m. out there in the US. So thank you for staying awake on a Saturday morning, Saturday night for y'all. And Friday night. And thank you so much for taking the time for being here. Firstly, truly, truly proud, thrilled, humbled, and grateful for trusting us in your application journey, partnering with us for your higher education and college applications, but also just so proud to have you all out here and looking forward to all the insights that you will be sharing. So with that, can I have the panelists quickly introduce themselves, please?
Yeah, I can start. Hi, I'm Melina. I'm currently in Bombay, but I'm a rising sophomore at Yale University, and my intended major at the moment, at least, is economics and global affairs.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you so much for that. Pranav?
Hi guys, so I'm Pranav, I'm from Kanpur. I went to school at Doon and currently at Penn. I'm doing a dual degree called Viper and basically focusing on materials engineering and chemistry for my majors.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you so much for being here. Samay, you want to go next?
Hey everyone, I'm Samay Lakhani. I'm going into my second year at Columbia, and I'm in the engineering school studying computer science with a focus on intelligent systems.
Okay, thank you, Samay. Sonakshi, you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Sonakshi. I'm currently in Kolkata for my vacation, but I'm based in Boston, and I'll be a freshman this fall at Dartmouth studying neuroscience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sonakshi, for that. Jia, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Jia. I'm a rising sophomore at Columbia, and right now my intended major is comparative literature.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for that. And as I said, once again, thrilled, proud, and humbled that we were your mentors, your partners in this higher education journey. And for families who are new to us, a quick introduction to who the Red Pen is. Who is the Red Pen? Who are we? So I would like to kind of just say that the Red Pen is an independent educational consultancy, very much based in Mumbai, but we have consultants all across the globe. We've been in the education space for close to 12 years now, but I think this clip will summarize it all. So can we have that, please?
Thinking of completing your undergraduate studies abroad? You're in the right place. The Red Pen is an 11-year-old global education consultancy that has helped over 10,000 applicants secure admission to some of the world's most prestigious colleges. Our team is dispersed across the world in places like the US, UK, Canada, Europe, Singapore, and India, and has in-depth knowledge of the application process at selected international universities. Our consultants, essay experts, and interview specialists have graduated from top 20 global institutions, including Oxbridge and the Ivy League. And many are parents themselves who understand the journey you are about to embark on. We are also members of global professional networks, which give us access to admissions officers and updated information on university trends. And we pool our expertise and insights for your applications. Our track record really does speak volumes about us.
99% of our students have received offers.
We've secured over $45 million in scholarships.
More than 50 unique majors such as computer science, business, economics, psychology of fashion, and the science of food preservation.
And admission to over 15 countries, including India, the US, UK, Canada, Singapore, Spain, and several others.
Our students have been admitted to every competitive university in the world. Harvard, Yale, Brown, Columbia, Penn,
Caltech, Stanford, MIT, UC Berkeley, UChicago, Rice, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, LSE,
Dartmouth, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, Duke, Northwestern,
Ashoka, Korea, University of Toronto, UBC, Erasmus, and Sciences Po.
We offer all-inclusive packages and a la carte services for every type of application anywhere in the world.
college research and selection,
brainstorming and editing essays,
Conducting mock interviews.
and providing strategies for scholarships and letters of recommendation.
The Red Pen is a one-stop solution for all your undergraduate application needs. To reduce the stress of the competitive application process, start as early as grade 8. We help you discover your passions, explore extracurricular activities, and prepare for a world of opportunities that await you. Contact us today to reach your academic goals.
Thank you for that, Shreya. And yes, I think that clip summarizes what exactly the Red Pen team is in so beautifully. And very thrilled again and proud to share. These are our current cycle, the fall 2024 students who are going to be starting in a month's time. And as you can see, we've been successful in having students admitted to, all these selective, highly ambitious colleges across the globe, ranging from the liberal arts colleges in India, which is Ashoka, Plaksha, Kriya, to selective colleges in the UK, Canada, US, so on and so forth. Our students have, can we have the next slide, please? Our students received 980 admissions from 217 universities and applicants from 18 countries. So we truly are global. We are working and mentoring students across the globe from grade 8 and 9 onwards, and our team is also from all across the globe. But this data, the scholarships, is something that I am truly, truly proud of. Our students this cycle alone have been awarded over $10 million in scholarships. And the reason that makes me this proud is these are merit scholarships. And when does a student warrant such amazing amount of merit scholarships? When you have put yourself the best foot forward, you have your application is a reflection of yourself in the best possible light from all angles possible. Those 10 pages of the PDF have really gone and made that impact on the admissions officer. So whether it's, of course, it's very much basis your profile, but also the way your narrative has been on that application, the way you held yourself in those interviews. And yes, out here, I want to give a huge, huge shout out even to the entire undergrad team. We've got all our mentors, lead consultants, content specialists. So it's a true team effort, the brilliance of the team's passion, effort, all the hard work that we pour, that goes a long way in getting these amazing outcomes. So again, a huge shout out to the team, and I couldn't be more proud of the team. Going on to another ethos of the Red Pen is that we truly believe in helping families across the globe staying updated and very much, abreast with what's happening in the higher education landscape. The higher education landscape is very fluid. There are changes constantly, but we ensure that we are putting relevant information out there constantly on our social media handles. So feel free to follow us on Instagram. We go by the name TRP Mumbai, on YouTube, and also on LinkedIn, if you wish to stay abreast on all the changes happening constantly in the higher education space. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so without further ado, let's now dive into the reason we are all here today. To understand the IVs. Yes, today we'll be breaking down 4 IVs. But what are the IVs? For families who are new to the college journey, let's understand what are the IVs. Let's pause and let's know that where did this powerful sort of a group of institutions come from. So the Ivy League colleges is basically a group of 8 private institutions in North America. As you can see, Princeton, Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Dartmouth, Brown, Penn. The Ivy League originally started in 1930 as an athletic conference. Yes, these 8 institutions got together for an athletic conference, and then over the years have just grown exponentially and now are synonymous with, academic excellence, selective admissions, and very influential and very powerful alumni. From Barack Obama to Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Meryl Streep, Robert Frost, and the list can go on and on and on. But what is it that makes these Ivy Leagues so competitive? Can we have the next slide? The numbers say it all out here. This cycle, that is class of 2028, it's a class that's going to graduate in 2028, meaning the fall 2024 students. Students will be starting this August who've completed the cycle, the cycle that Sonakshi, you've just gone through. The students in this cycle, what was the total number of applications that were, submitted to the Ivy Leagues, the 8 Ivy Leagues collectively? Over 4 lakh applications. And what are the number of admitted students? Do the math. It's 21,000 approximately. So we are talking of, nearly 3 to 4 to 5% admit and acceptance rates. In fact, colleges like Penn, Princeton, they also now withhold, they admit data. But and the reason for sharing this data is only to help the audience understand that is the reason, the Ivy Leagues are considered highly, highly aspirational, highly, highly selective. And this is something that we should keep in mind when we are also aspiring for aiming towards the Ivy Leagues. So let's understand for a quick second, because our students, our panelists are also then going to help you understand their profile. But what is it that makes these colleges selective? Whether it's the Ivy Leagues or most selective colleges in the US, what is the application process like? What is it that they are evaluating? Why are these admit numbers we keep hearing year on year getting smaller and smaller? So, and I would love to quote, our CEO and co-founder Kim Dixit out here, where she says, when you're aspiring for the Ivy Leagues or for, of course, the highly selected colleges, we need to have all 3 cylinders firing. And these 3 cylinders are data, voice, and talent. The US embraces what is known as a holistic evaluation approach. Unlike the traditional colleges in India or the UK colleges, they don't want to just see you in one light or just one aspect, which could be only your data. Data is your academic reflection. Everything with regards to your metrics that tells the colleges that would you be able to sustain and thrive in the rigor that they are offering. So they want to see your college grades over the last 4 years, your rigor of the curriculum, the subjects that you've taken, your standardized test scores, which is SAT, ACT, and your overall academic performance. So yes, when we talk about the Ivy Leagues, we're talking about them all being pretty much perfect scores, perfect, subject selection, and even very high scores on the SAT or the ACT. In fact, just to make a note out here that colleges were test optional for a very long time, given COVID. But this year onwards, in fact, we are seeing many, many colleges reinstating the SAT and the ACT requirements. And even 4 of the Ivies now require it, which is Harvard, Yale, Brown, and Dartmouth. So our students aspiring to apply for any, aspiring to apply to any of these Ivy Leagues, do remember that these 4 Ivies require test scores. The other 4 Ivies continue to remain test optional for this cycle. Yes, Columbia has gone test optional permanently. So Gia, Samay, Columbia has been a sort of a pioneer in setting the tone out there. So yes, data is very, very important. It's the backbone, the fulcrum, the most important component or the cylinder in this application process. Sometimes students do feel that, okay, if I have a unique talent or if I've discovered something or, I have published books, authors, stuff like that, my unique talent or my really strong essays can make up for slightly weak data. But sorry to bust your bubble out here, that's not the case. When we are talking about these Ivy League colleges or the highly selected colleges, nothing can sort of make up for data. That is most important. Having said that, like we said, the US embraces what is known as a holistic evaluation. They want to know what else are you bringing to the student body. Why admit you over the other thousands of applicants that have equally strong data? So it is that voice and the talent that truly now come into the picture out here. Talent is everything that you're truly passionate about. And we are going to be hearing from Sonakshi, Gia, Samay, Pranav, a lot about Alina on, what are their extracurriculars or what were their kinds of talents that helped, help them be successful in this process. And essays, again, a very critical component because that is the one part of this application process which admission officers have said is their favorite. That is a hook for them. That is the window into the real you, the person that makes you. the other components of the application, they can see things that are, yes, visible on the transcripts and visible on, sort of your activity session, activity list and from your recommendation letters, but it is your essays that are very, very critical and they can make or break your application. So yes, this was just a quick understanding of what is the US application process and the holistic approach. Going on to now, I wish to now dive into breaking down the 4 IVs that we are going to break down today, which are, of course, Yale, Columbia, Penn, and Dartmouth. So let's have the spotlight on Dartmouth. Sonakshi, the spotlight's on you now. If you can help me with a brief, profile, so that families understand that what kind of profile, made the cut or was successful at Dartmouth.
So I'm from Kolkata originally. I did up to class 9 in Kolkata, and then I moved to Boston, Massachusetts, and I completed my high school there. So for my profile, I think I had high grades overall throughout high school, and then I had a 36 on my ACT, and I had a few science and math prizes at school and a couple of state level achievements as well in India. And for my extracurriculars, I had 2 research papers that I had published in the field of chemistry. I was in charge of a couple of school clubs, in charge of the peer tutor program at my school. I also had internships at hospitals, and I volunteered.
Fantastic. So that is definitely a very strong, well-rounded profile, as we say. My first question to you, Sonakshi, is on how many IVs did you apply to, if at all? Or what is it about Dartmouth that got you feeling that, yes, this is the IV that I want to apply to?
So Dartmouth was the only IB that I applied to because I applied under the early decision program, which is a binding program. And then one of the reasons I was drawn to Dartmouth was the D plan, which is Dartmouth's flexible academic schedule, where you can choose which terms you are on campus and off campus. And this optimizes your availability for internships, exchange programs, etc. I also really like the undergraduate focus and the tight-knit community, which results from Hanover's very remote location.
Super. But Sonakshi, I think you did mention, when we were chatting that you had also visited other IVs. So
Yes.
what about, having visited other IVs, having considered other IVs, if you can also share a little bit more about what exactly about Dartmouth compared to the other IVs, because through that, families will understand a little bit more about, Dartmouth also.
So for me, I think at the end of the day, it was personal preference. I visited all the other IVs, and it was kind of like a process of elimination, you could say. Some of them I just didn't like how big the campus was or how big the student body is. Having been at both a really big school and a really small school in high school, I knew that being in a small, closed, tight-knit student community was important to me. And so I think my personal values aligned very well with what Dartmouth had to offer. And I think that's how I came to my decision.
Okay, fantastic. So I would like to also kind of, let families know that, yes, the 8 private institutions that make up the Ivy League is a group of, obviously, institutions that stand for very high academics and, strong offerings, but each one is very different from each other. And when families are aspiring to applying, for applying to the IVs, it's very important to really know each IV in detail because they are very different. If you remember the slide that I just, had shared on the IVs, and Shreya, if you can just share, the slide on the 8 IVs, we have tried to align or give an identity to the 8 IVs here, basis the kind of student body that they seek. So Princeton, we've kind of given a visionary as the identity, Columbia as a thinker, Harvard that likes to seek leaders, Yale, which is more of like, they like to connect and a collaborative student body, Cornell, which is more on problem solving, Dartmouth, again, like, similar to Yale, tight-knit student body collaboration, Brown, which is trailblazers, and Penn, which is all about doing things. Thank you, Shreya. So just wanting to also highlight through this question that it is very important to understand the identity of each IV. And it's not like, okay, let me apply to Brown and Columbia because they are very, very different. We'll come down to it. But understanding the identity and what each IV has to specifically offer is very important. With that, my next question to you, Sonakshi, is what is special about Dartmouth's neuroscience program or department? Because there are so many other colleges that really have very strong, med and neuroscience programs. So what about Dartmouth stood out for you?
So my personal interest in neuroscience, it stemmed from prior summer research that I had done and also clinical experiences. And I knew that STEM overall was obviously excellent at Dartmouth, but the particular research going on there about the neurobiology behind social interactions and the role of sound and memory, I found that really fascinating. And Dartmouth also has its own medical school and it also has its own hospital. So I knew that with these ties that the college has, I would have excellent opportunities for extracurriculars in college.
Fantastic. So Sonakshi, you really dive deep into knowing the actual research, the actual sort of the neuroscience department, what they were diving into. And it was the strength or the research that was being conducted that aligned to your interest that you had you pinning down to Dartmouth finally as your ED option. Because a profile as strong as yours, you had very many other options. Fantastic. So with that, I would just like students to make a note that yes, diving deep into your academic interest is very, very critical to really kind of know that how well are you also aligning with what the college has to offer. With that, let's move on to a little bit about, letters of recommendation. So for families to know that letters of recommendation, again, are a very critical component of the US evaluation process. They like to know the student through another lens. They like to know what kind of a student are you in your current student body? What are the characters or the traits that you're bringing to our campus as well? And Dartmouth had introduced something known as a very interesting component to their application process, known as a peer recommendation back in 2009, where a peer could write that, recommendation for you. And I think that is interesting. And I think even Penn introduced that 2 years back in 2022, where, you can have your best friend or, best friend's mother, somebody who really knows you well, they could write that letter for you. So Sonakshi, my question to you is, did you get a peer recommendation for Dartmouth?
Yes, I did. So my childhood best friend, who's known me for many, many years, she wrote my peer recommendation. And I think it's just a part of the application that shows what type of person you are off the paper.
And why, of course, I'm sure your best friend is someone closest and knows you the best. But any other reason for choosing, your best friend? Because generally the perception is that best friend will write, obviously the best, they'll have you in the best light possible. But any other reason for choosing, having your best friend write that recommendation letter?
She has been with me through thick and thin. And one thing about my college application, since I moved in the 9th grade, in the middle of COVID, that was a very challenging time adjusting and all that. So I think she did mention something about that in her letter that helped, kind of help the admissions officers understand what the transition was like.
Fantastic. So again, a note to families out here that whenever you have this sort of an opportunity, yes, do pick that one person who really knows you inside out, knows you, as Sonakshi said, through thick and thin, who's seen you face certain challenges, because then they can talk about, certain growth aspects of you, which can be very helpful to the admission officers. Okay. Pranav, even UPenn had that requirement in 2022. Did you have anything on the peer recommendation?
Oh, so I applied in 2021, so I didn't have
Correct.
anything
So
to
you
do
didn't
that.
have that. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Super. Going back to Sonakshi, can you share something in your extracurriculars that definitely help distinguish you or make that impact on your application?
I think the most important part across all my extracurriculars was consistency. So all my activities that I had done that I have mentioned on my application, I had done them over a period of multiple years. So I had, as I mentioned before, the 2 research papers that I did them over a period of 3 years, which helped me get acknowledged as a co-author on the paper. And then my music, I had done it over a period of 8-9 years. So
Wow.
that also helped me achieve the highest level of involvement that I could. And then even at school, my school activities, I was involved in them through all 3 years of high school that I was in the US. So even for academics, I think consistency in terms of grades, like having consistently high grades, I think that was a very important part.
Fantastic. So Sonakshi's touched upon a very, very important point, and that is something that we keep telling our families, that when you talk about extracurriculars, it's very important to note that consistency and that depth. the depth of the engagement that you are communicating and reflecting is so important. It is not important to do 20 zillion things. Do 2 to 3 things, but do them in the great depth, because that truly talks about the passion that you had for that. And like Sonakshi said, there was depth even in her interest, which was music. There was depth in her academic area of interest, which was, with regards to the medicine field. I remember, Sonakshi, you also had volunteered at the hospital for 2-3 years in a stretch, right? At a stretch. So when you are as young as 9th and 10th, you probably don't know that you're going to actually be interested in, this area for so long, but you continued at it to finally know, and that is what really helps. So for families here, and if you're planning ahead of time, very important to note that by grade 9, it's time to filter out the breadth and start showing depth. So identify where your passion lies. It could be related to your academic interest. It could be a general hobby, but show some consistency and depth. That goes a long way. Because even on your application form, you have, on the left-hand side, you have to check boxes that for how many years you've done it and what are the hours that you've kind of engaged. So very important to show that consistency and depth. That is another important critical component of, while you're preparing for the highly selective colleges. My last question to you, Sonakshi, is on what did you focus on in your college supplement essays? I will explain the audience what that is in a bit, but when it came to why Dartmouth, why major, what did you focus on and where did you do this research from?
So for my Y college essays, for any college that I wrote them for, I made sure I thoroughly researched each college before I even started brainstorming the essay. I used the college website, information from tours and campus visits, the social media, and also newsletters. I think mentioning specific details such as names of classes or professors are very important, because for Dartmouth, I referenced a specific neuroscience class, Psych 28. And I also talked about the research that I mentioned previously going on in that neuroscience department.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sonakshi, for sharing that. And with that, I just want families to make a note that in the US, when we talk about US colleges, many colleges, of course, the Ivy Leagues and many other selective colleges, they have what is known as supplemental essays. In fact, the prompts will be announced very soon on August 1st. Every college wants to know a little bit more about why does that institution interest you? What about that institution interests you? And that requires you doing a good amount of detailed and a thorough, robust research, because that is another important component where the admissions will know that, okay, are you serious about me, or am I just one of those 20 or 12 that you're applying to? So when you have done your research, will you know about the exact program or those professors? Or if you know about some current news that they are putting out there on their social media, they know that you have taken the effort to know really about them and you are serious about considering that university. And institutions now, it's through COVID, and after COVID, the colleges are taking a lot of effort on putting themselves out there, even, on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram. So we definitely encourage students that do follow, the colleges that you're truly considering, stay abreast. This information will be so handy, whether it's your Y college essay, Y major essay, in interviews. So staying abreast and having those as your social media feed will be very, very helpful. So thank you, Sonakshi. Thank you so much for all your insights on Dartmouth. I think we've helped families understand and break down Dartmouth to a large extent, that it is an Ivy League based in New Hampshire. Sonakshi had visited it. It is a very small, tight-knit community. It is one of the smallest of the Ivies. And it is this small, tight-knit, collaborative community that I think aligned to what Sonakshi was seeking, given her high school growth also. So thank you, Sonakshi. Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the spotlights now on Alina, Yale University. So Alina, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. We've also hosted you at our previous Journey to College session. And can you, Alina, start with a brief introduction to your profile, which will help families understand the kind of profile that was successful at Yale?
Yeah, so I've been in Bombay my entire life, studied at BIS. I did the IGCSE in the 9th and 10th. I got all 9 A stars, IB in the 11th and 12th with a predicted perfect score. I received like school level academic achievement awards in both the 10th and 12th, and I had an SAT score of 1550. And then extracurriculars wise, I think my most favorite and important extracurricular were the internships I did. So I interned at the World Health Organization. I did a summer program at Yale, which was one of the many reasons I fell in love with Yale. I did a few law internships, as well as an international conflict resolution camp. And then throughout the 9th to 12th, I also like in school did MUN, student council, volunteering, etc.
Fantastic, Alina. That definitely sounds like a power-packed profile. And of course, we are very, very, closely aware of so much had gone in you with that laser focus preparing for being that very strong applicant. So, Alina, my first question to you is that did you apply to any other Ivies, and how did you decide that Yale was the Ivy that you wanted to finally apply to?
So I also actually applied to Yale early. It's not ED, it's in the restrictive early action round. And as you know, we discussed several other Ivies as well in the entire process. We discussed Harvard and Princeton at length, but I think what really tipped me in the direction of Yale were the conversations I had with current students. I think that's a really important thing, just talking to current students and seeing what their experience at the place is like, because it tells you a lot more than an Instagram post or an article online would tell you. I think the reason that Yale seemed like a good fit for me was because I think throughout my life, something that I always try to do was just stay at the top of my academics, constantly trying to like reach the top. But I really wanted to have a more balanced college experience. I wanted a grounded student body, but still at a top school. And I think Yale was definitely a place that met both those conditions. I think now having been here for a year, I know I made the right decision because I have that grounded student body without the airs and attitude that I think a lot of people would expect of an Ivy League. And having met students from other Ivies like Harvard and Princeton being the ones I was considering, while they're lovely people, I know that those schools would not have been the right fit for me personally. So I think when I went about it, I think it's just important to go in with a clear intention of what you want out of the experience. And for me, it was balance and not an excessively cutthroat environment while still being at a very competitive school. So, and that was Yale.
Fantastic, Alina. I think you touched upon such an important point that you reflected and you knew that, yes, your high school journey was where you were constantly challenging yourself and you wanted to be in a less competitive environment. And Yale offered that, that environment to you. So my question to Pranav, Gia, did you all also speak to, senior students, current students, to really know what is it that, that college is offering? Pranav, you want to take that first?
So if I understand that correctly, you're asking like before I applied to colleges
Yes.
or?
Yes. Before you applied, did you also speak to Penn students to know about sort of the campus environment in terms of competitive or less competitive?
Not really, no. I think it didn't really like matter that much, like how the environment is going to be. It's like more
Correct.
you want to find out when you get there than have a like a
Correct.
preconceived.
And Alina, of course, touched upon how Yale is less competitive or it feels slightly more relaxed. Pranav, any thoughts on, what would you say about the competitive spirit at Penn?
Sorry, yeah. So, um, like I just give me a second. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Samir, do you want to take that up? Because I know we've had a good chat on the competitive ecosystem at Columbia.
Yeah, I can. So the question is about what the competition at Columbia is like.
Yeah.
So I'd say there's a pretty big range of the kinds of people that are at Columbia. You'll have like people who are like very interested in their own things, whether it's like they could be really interested in protesting or politics or whatever. They could also be, really interested in computer science or athletics or whatever it is. But I also have found that certain people are drawn towards the same exact tracks. So you'll find a lot of people in the engineering school, I think I talked to you about this, is they get very attracted to finance. There's a small group of people who are chasing these finance internships or IB internships. And then it turns out everybody's looking at all these people, in the application cycle, and they're like, oh, I should probably do that as well. And so I think right now, as these cycles continue to happen, people are going to be more drawn to do the same exact thing as other people. And I think it causes a little bit of overcrowding. That competition causes a little bit of overcrowding, and so it's pretty competitive now, and I think it's going to become more competitive in the future. But I think in that kind of situation, it's probably just best to do what you're interested in and what you're good at, which is, pretty obvious and straightforward.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. My next question to you, Alina, is that how challenging, again, this is very helpful for all our high school students when you're transitioning from, as an international student, or obviously you're transitioning curriculars, right? How challenging or rigorous did you find the first year? And what were the most challenging courses?
I think challenge in course load definitely depends on skill set and interest and like the preparation that you've had for each subject in high school. So since I did the IB curriculum, and I know a lot of people in college with me that did the IB curriculum, I think it prepared me really well for college level classes. So I think the curriculum you come from really matters for sure. After doing the IB and like the hell that it felt like at points, I think the first year of college definitely felt more balanced. And when I was mentioning balance, I think it's also I think there's a lot of internal competition that happens. You constantly want to like better yourself, but there was a lot of collaboration in terms of classes, which I don't know if I had as much in school. There was a lot of like peer tutoring and mentoring that happened through the classes. So I think there's a lot of support throughout your classes. The thing about the IB that I think helped is just the writing. A lot of colleges focus on writing and essays a lot. So I think the IB definitely prepared me well for that. I don't think any of the classes were particularly like impossible to like tackle, but I think the reason for that was that we have things like placement tests and peer tutoring that goes into all of them. There are obviously some that are very difficult given the fact that it's such a competitive and like high stake situation in some of the departments. So for example, I think intro CS and like intro philosophy and things like that are classes that students find really difficult. And generally it's because they're not classes that people take in high school. Like philosophy and computer science are very much college level classes. So I did intro ethics this semester. I thought it was really hard. Because you're learning it absolutely from scratch. But in general, I don't think it was as daunting and insurmountable as I expected it to be.
So, Lina, you definitely would have now had friends from other curriculars, right? A level, CBSE, ISC. Do you think, students coming from other curriculars found it more challenging? Because you did mention even when we were speaking earlier that you felt the IB prepared you well because the IB, involves so much of writing and critical thinking. And that is what, US college academics is also largely about. And you mentioned that you were writing so many papers from day one, whether it was sciences, social sciences. So any insights on, your friends coming from different curriculars, and did they find it, particularly challenging?
So I think it's definitely a steeper learning curve for some people from other curriculums who are not as used to the extensive writing that like we've obviously had in the IB. But at the same time, I feel like everybody, like I have friends from CBSE, I have friends from like US high school systems. I feel like everybody that eventually ended up at Yale did so much outside like high school, even if their high school like curriculums weren't as competitive because they were supplementing it with so much outside that. I feel like everybody ended up there and very much had an appetite for rigor and hard work. So even though it was a steeper learning curve, maybe they had to put in more effort to like learn the writing skills and have it come as easily. Eventually, I think everybody reaches sort of an even playing field because I think everybody definitely has that appetite for rigor. But I think I definitely had less work to do in that sense because the IB had prepared me for it previously.
Fantastic. So you have students from other curriculars as well, right? Gia, my question to you also along the same lines that when it comes to transitioning, because even you've just completed 1 year at Columbia, any particular course that you feel was more challenging, or what is that piece of advice that you would want to give future international applicants for a smoother transition to college academically?
I think I also did the IB, and so I also felt like in terms of writing, I felt quite prepared for the amount of like writing that you have to do in college and like the level. But I definitely don't want to say that I came in like to college and my writing was amazing. Like even within 1 year of being at college, like you learn so much. Like I feel like you improve your writing so much, even if you've come in with a strong base. I think one thing that like the IB maybe did not prepare me for as much and that I found difficult to transition was the amount of reading you have to do, especially like in my major and at Columbia with like the core curriculum and everything. there's a lot of required reading and a lot of really old ancient books you have to read, and like big texts that are very heavy. And I think in the IB, maybe this was just me, but I feel like I got a lot out of the IB in terms of writing, but not so much in terms of reading and how to read selectively and take what you need to from information. So I think practice your writing for sure, especially if you haven't done the IB. But whether you've done the IB or not, definitely read a lot. Just read more so that you're good at reading by the time you get to college.
Wow, that is such amazing advice, and that's music to our ears, because that's exactly what we, really emphasize on when we mentor students as early as we're 8 and 9, that reading is such an important skill. And I think college essays also somewhere starts prepping you for that. But Alina and Gia have very, rightly highlighted the amount of writing and that skill that's going to be required when you go to a US institution, which is just going to make that transition slightly easier. And Gia has also highlighted about reading. And my question again, just for all of you all, so that again families are it's helpful for families, that you all have friends, and student body is a mix of students from various curriculars, right? A levels, ISC, CBSE, so on and so forth. Any of y'all can just take that question, that you all have a mixed student body from various curriculars, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Super, because families do generally have this question that, is it that colleges or Ivy Leagues have a preference for students from the, IB? Do they have a preference from A levels? When we are also talking about students transitioning schools after 10th for 11th and 12th, and they're debating that, okay, should I go with an A level or should I go with an IB? Because then in the future, would an A level not be considered that strong? So again, for families, an important note to take away, that all curriculars are very, equally perceived by institutions, Ivy Leagues. They don't have a preference one over the other. It is the skill set that you're bringing to the college. Okay. My next question to you, Alina, and this is again something very interesting and important, is the interviews. For families to know that Ivy League colleges, several Ivy League colleges and several highly selective colleges have something known as alumni interviews or interviews with seniors. And they are very often selected, they are very often evaluated. And what does that term evaluative mean? Evaluative means that the admissions committee will be having your interview report parallelly, and they'll be reading that alongside your application material. So Alina, my question to you is that you had an alumni interview. Can you share a little bit about what was that like? How did you prepare for it? And how early had you started? How early had you started the interview preparation?
Yeah, so I did have an alumni interview for Yale. It was definitely one of the best interviews I had. I think it was supposed to be like a 45-minute interview. It went on for almost like 2.5 hours. I felt like I really connected with my interviewer. It wasn't like, and I thought it was going to be like, before I started interview prep, I thought it was going to be like an academic, like grilling, but it was very much just my interviewer trying to get to know me, like understand what I'm like, what my interests are, like who I am genuinely, off just an application, like separate from just the paper. I started preparing, I think maybe over the summer, a little bit earlier than the summer with it at Penn. I did a lot of mock interviews and all of that. And I think that definitely, like, without trying to like do a PR movement, it was definitely really helpful just to practice, especially with the feedback I got. One of my main the main feedback I received was that I wasn't selling myself enough, and that I was underplaying everything I was doing. And I think keeping that in mind while actually going into an interview was really important. I also think I definitely underestimated the importance of the interview. I realized that when I actually got to college, I had the chance to read my admissions file, so to understand how my admissions office evaluated me. And I think the interview was actually a lot more important than I expected it to be. There was a whole section for the interview. There was like rating scales given for the interview from the interviewer notes, all of that. So I think it's really important to go into your interview prepared, read your application before, don't go in with sort of scripted answers. They can ask you literally anything. Like I had my interviewer ask me about an English text that I liked in my classes, and we spoke about it for like 20 minutes. She asked me how I commute in Bombay, and it sort of started a conversation about privilege in India. So I think you can literally be asked anything. The most important thing is to just be yourself. Try to not be like a specific person or try to like put on a certain image, because they see through that. Interviewers are literally like professional lie detectors. They will see through anything you say. So I definitely think that I underestimated the importance, but at least at Yale, they take interviews and recommendations and things like that really seriously.
Fantastic, Alina. Alina, you've highlighted so many important points. Firstly, yes, for families to know, admission officers are like live lie detectors, professional lie detectors, because sometimes you may feel, okay, my essay, I can write this and I can, walk, I can breeze through writing A and B, but when it comes to the interviews, they'll fluff it out from like a mile away. And very importantly, Alina, I also remember when you and I were chatting that you mentioned that your admission officer knew, of course, she was probably an American, but she knew India, she knew Mumbai. And you all spoke about, train commute. So had you fluffed your way through that, you probably were not going to be landing in spot, right? So you want to share a little bit on that?
Yeah, so she lived in Bombay for 7 years because she was married to somebody in India and then moved back to the US. And she just straight up asked me, how do you commute? And I personally I told her I travel to school by bus, and she said, no, but just on a normal day, like, do you use a car? Do you use the local train? And I said, I generally use a car. And it sounded so privileged to say that I have like a personal chauffeur driving me around or anything like that. It sounds like it comes from a space of such privilege. And so she just asked me straight up, do you use the train? And I had a moment of saying, what if I just tell her, yeah, I do, and I use the train all the time. And if she asks me a question about it, I won't have anything to say. So we just sort of started talking about what it means to use the train in Bombay. I spoke about how, I have like parents who had uncomfortable experiences on it, didn't want me to have the same experiences, understanding that comes from a space of a lot of privilege. And she told me also, she was like, that was a really difficult question. You answered it really well. Like, I'm glad you were honest and you understand your privilege and all of that. So I think like I said, just being yourself is really important. I thought that I was going to like completely mess up my interview with that answer and that she was going to think of me as like some like spoiled brat, but that wasn't the case. I think it was just her trying to understand how I navigate a question like that. So how you approach the question, I think, is as important as your answer itself. Not getting phased by a question, just being as honest as possible. And at the end of the day, if you're honest and they don't take you, I mean, at least you were yourself.
Absolutely. I love that piece of advice. And just for families to know, on the interview component, that interviews are becoming more and more critical in the application and evaluation process, given that we are in the day and age of chat GPT, where there is so much application material that is over sanitized, right? So take interviews very, very seriously. Colleges have, they offer you interview slots as early as, even right now. But take a lot of effort and, do prep for their interviews well ahead of time. Don't kind of put it together at the very last hour, the 9th hour. At the Red Pen, we start interview preparation as early as April and May, irrespective of wherever you're applying to. And like Alina said, the admission officers really want to know you as the authentic you. That is what US applications is genuinely about. Any and every admission officer will say that, please, what we would love to see is the authentic you. They do not want to see what you may feel may impress the admissions officer. Don't try to don't try to fit that mold. So it's very important that you also think about this component and, take it way ahead of time quite seriously. My next question to you, Alina, is can you share a little bit about the unique residential college life, which is unique again to Yale? Like we said, every university has a particular identity. It could be the open curricula at Brown, which is a unique feature, which is unique to Brown, or it could be the core curricula at Columbia. The unique feature to Yale is the residential college life. So, Alina, can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, so the residential college system is very unique to Yale. I didn't really understand it before getting there, but I mean, for everybody, it's somewhat like that of an Oxford or a Cambridge. We have 14 residential colleges. Each Yale student, when they enter, is randomly assigned to one. You live in your college for almost all 4 years. Each has like a dining hall, a common room, a game room, library, etc. And all of them have like an academic like head of college, an academic dean, who will help basically oversee both your academic and overall well-being for all 4 years. You have a lot of traditions, several events year-round as well. And each college sort of has, since there are 14, each will have around 400 to 500 students. And those people in your college really become like your family for the 4 years that you're at Yale. There's also a lot of diversity in interest and major within each college, which I really like, because I feel like otherwise you meet people in your classes and you become really close to them and you end up having a lot of friends within your major. But my friends in my college, like I have a friend doing music, I have a friend doing like engineering. There's really a diversity of interest. So you get to like meet people that expand your circle a lot as well. Um, it's been really instrumental to my Yale experience. And I think it's just really nice to have a smaller sub community on campus. Like, what's your residential college will be the first question that anybody asks you when you're trying to get to know them. It's a part of your introduction. It's definitely a core aspect of life at Yale. And I think the reason Yale has it is just sort of making you feel like you belong to one or many communities. And that's the main reason, I think, for the residential college system.
Fantastic. So yes, for families who, are considering and exploring Yale or want to know a little bit more about Yale, this is a unique feature that one needs to know, that the residential college life, the 14 colleges that Yale has to offer as a part of the smaller sub-communities is unique to Yale. So where you may be a part of an undergrad student body, like, 6,000, 7,000, but each residential college is around 400 to 500, where they have their own academic advisors, their own, sort of cultural celebrations, so on and so forth. So you feel a part of a tighter community while being a part at a larger university. Also interesting is that Yale, there is, you cannot have any preference, right, Alina? You are randomly placed. And they believe in placing students in a way that encourages cross sort of discipline overall development. A student studying anthropology versus someone studying cognitive sciences versus somebody studying music, literature, they will all be in that one that residential college. So your conversations are always, having so many different perspectives. And that is a very important aspect of the Yale undergrad experience. And Alina, how has your experience so far been? And you think that has really helped even the 1 year that you've been there?
Definitely. I think it's like it makes it so easy to make friends because you live together, you like have so many events together. So I think it makes it like most of my closest friends are in my residential college. Since you end up knowing everybody, I think another really important thing is it helps you meet your seniors as well, which otherwise I feel like you get stuck in just having friends from your own year. Because we're in the same residential college, we sort of work together over things and share the same spaces so much. I think it's really helpful that I've become really close to a lot of my seniors, and like just getting advice from them, getting help from them for classes, just general like advice on how to take on certain things at Yale has been really helpful. And I think that's definitely as a result of the residential college system.
Super. And my last question to you, Alina, is that of course Yale is known for, and it's renowned for its strong social sciences and humanities programs. But can you share a little bit on the STEM and the science programs? And they're making great strides even recently in introducing a lot more of the STEM programs. So can you share a little bit on those lines?
Yeah, so of course, Yale has a reputation of being strong in the humanities and social sciences, but I think contrary to that popular belief, STEM is actually growing a lot at Yale. As of a few years ago, I remember reading an article that said that I think in 2022 there were more STEM graduates at Yale in the previous few years actually than humanities and arts graduates. Because Yale has done a lot recently in the last 10 years to increase recruitment of STEM students and just invest a lot in both STEM departments, faculty. There's obviously a lot of biology presence, which has been there for years, a lot of pre-med and biology majors. Like every third person that I know is doing molecular, cellular, developmental biology as a major. But there's a lot of like development happening in fields like engineering and physics. Literally half of our campus is called Science Hill, and it's full of just biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, comp sci labs, and like big astrophysics departments, all of that. So there's definitely a huge dedication to STEM. And I think for sure, like the opportunities are just increasing. So right now, doing STEM at Yale, it's a really exciting time to be there because as you're there, you're seeing so much grow around you. They're giving you a lot of hands-on experience as well. Like I have friends who are learning how to use equipment and 3D printers and things like that by themselves. So for sure, I think right now STEM at Yale is like, it has grown and it is just continuing to grow because I think they're trying to get out of that exact reputation that the only thing that Yale is really renowned for is social sciences, and that STEM is also like very cutting edge at Yale.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alina, so much. I think you've shared so much, and for students, current year applicants considering Yale, for your why major, why college essays, from residential life to science hill to the new cutting edge, STEM programs. I think we've given you a lot. So super. Thank you, Alina. Thank you so much for that. And we will come back towards the end because I forgot to touch upon one point where you spoke about once you reach college, you do get the option of reading your admit file, and that you get to know what were the rankings or the gradings to your extracurriculars, interviews, so on and so forth. So we'll take that up towards the end. Okay, super. So moving on to let's move to Columbia now. The spotlight on Gia and Sameh. Just one thing I want to touch upon before we start talking about Columbia is that something that one really needs to know about Columbia is going back to, what is unique to each Ivy. The core curricula is the cornerstone or the hallmark of the, Columbia undergrad experience. Can we move to the next slide where we got perfect? So I'm just going to dial back for a second and just let families know that when you talk about, the US undergrad education, it is truly the whole pedagogy, the premise of that education is to create a well-rounded individual at the end of 4 years. Every institution, most institutions in the US will require students to complete something known as the general education requirements. The general education requirements will be subjects from various disciplines. It could be from mathematics, social sciences, natural sciences, technology, so on and so forth. So you could be, as an undergrad, irrespective of what your major is, you will be or you may be required to do, say, intro courses in mathematics, say, to stats or algebra, in the sciences to, say, chemistry, bio, in social sciences, say, econ, science, so on and so forth. Those general education requirements need to be completed over a course of 4 years by the time you graduate. And obviously, the whole premise is to ensure that you're a well-rounded individual. So coming to Columbia, what is unique to Columbia's curricula is known as the core curricula, is a little bit of a well-defined, or so to say, a little bit of a rigid curricula, where Columbia University basically has 2 undergrad colleges, the Columbia College and the Columbia Engineering. Columbia College offers over 60 majors, and irrespective of whether you're studying chemistry, gender studies, literature, cognitive science, computer science, there are courses that you will have to complete within these core, and the core that you need to choose is, the arts humanities, literature humanities, music humanities, contemporary civilization, frontiers of science, and university writing. Irrespective, you may want to be a computer science, but you will have to take courses from these cores. Similarly, in the engineering school, you could be, like Samay is doing, whether it's a computer engineering, you will still need to take non-technical requirements, which would be across university writing, core humanities, which is again through across contemporary civilization. There could be arts humanities or music humanities and principles of economics. So coming to Columbia, I would like to now, have a little bit more of a discussion on this core, because it is one of the biggest experiences or the most important, so to say, the experience of Columbia. So over to you, Gia. If you can help, we can stop sharing screen. Gia, if you can help, students, future aspirants understand that how has the core experience been so far? Yes, you've completed only a year, but how have you enjoyed the core, or what are the core classes? And, you can share a little bit about that.
Okay, so I have done literature, humanities, frontiers of science, and university writing till now. So you finish, like, that's one thing to know, is like you finish a lot of the core in the first 2 years, and then you get a lot of flexibility after. But honestly, I had to adjust at first because, as I said before about like being prepared for college, especially literature humanities, which is a year-long course, like you have to read so much and so fast, and I was just not ready for that. So I had to adjust, but like I think it's not difficult to get help in the core, especially because it's part of the curriculum that's been going on for so long. So like not only your teachers and like the and everyone around you like knows it so well because it's such a core part of the university, but also like literally anyone you talk to has done what you've done, any seniors. And I think that's one of the reasons that they have the core, is because it's a consistent experience for everyone at the college, no matter what. And I think I think from class to class and person to person, like you're gonna like certain parts of it more. But like, so for example, I didn't love the literature humanities class, but like my university writing class I thought was really good and genuinely really helped me. And the frontiers of science class, because I'm a literature major, like it really helped me do something different and like learn something that I didn't think that I would be looking at really at all in college. And yeah, I think that overall it's good, especially if you like structure and you like having some structure. That's what helped me adjust. But I think you also just have to be ready for the fact that like it is a lot in the beginning, but you will get used to it. And most people I know end up liking at least a few of their core classes, because it is genuinely like only there to help us.
Super. And Gia, if you can share a little bit on what is the reading component like? Because I know the kinds of literature books that you have to read, but it'll be great for, our students to know that what is it that is entails in that literature humanities component.
I'm not trying to make it sound scary. It's not like that bad.
Yeah, of course.
But basically it's just that for me, what was hard, you have to read a lot of books very fast. So it'll be like you're expected to read this certain extract of like this huge book from the like BCs, and you have to read it in 2 weeks, which is like hard. But so some of the books that I've read, like we've read stuff like from Virginia Woolf, we've read like Jane Austen, and there's some books that I really enjoy, like Pride and Prejudice, and we read a lot of poetry. But then we also read like the classic epics like the Iliad and the Odyssey, and those are a little harder to grasp. But yeah, so that's just like an idea of the content and like the structure of the class.
Super. Thank you, Gia. Samay, over to you. So as an engineer, and I know inherently engineers have slightly averse to, the non-humanities courses. So can you share, your experience of the core that you had to fulfill? And do you think it added, or, how does it contribute towards a budding engineer?
Yeah, so I would say the Columbia Engineering School is definitely very different from Columbia College's like core sequence of whichever classes you have to take. Because it's an engineering school, there's a lot more, I guess, strict classes that you're gonna have to take whether you like it or not. And you should take. So like physics 1, like physics 2, calculus, all different kinds of classes like that. It's very similar to a high school experience in that there's requirements that you have to take that will help build up your knowledge about your specific major. Personally, I would say that I'm not a huge fan of the requirements, but it definitely gives structure to the school. And same thing with Columbia College is that most of those requirements are going to be done within the first 2 years, and then it's like a lot more freedom. You become a lot more major specific. Also, though, there is humanities kinds of aspect to it. There is a class called Art of Engineering where you kind of don't just learn about engineering and how to build a project, but also how to make it like human-centered and how to make the design like human-centric design so that people are more comfortable using it, how you can engineer for like sustainability or comfort or whatever it is. And in terms of how challenging the classes were, I'd say the answer is actually not that unique to Columbia. Whether you take an engineering class at like Georgia Tech or you take it at Columbia, you're going to be taking physics 1, physics 2 regardless. Those are the same things. And it pretty much just depends on who your professor is rather than which class it is specifically.
Fantastic. Super. That was good to know for all our budding engineers that, you cannot escape these core or these humanities courses, but they definitely add to your overall development. Okay. Gia, my next question to you is, what kind of students do you feel Columbia is looking for?
Okay. I think that like in general, they're looking for students that obviously like all the buckets that you listed before, like with like good grades and like like extracurriculars and all of that. But I think like what I thought kind of sets apart like someone who's applying to Columbia versus a different Ivy League, like I think that they really care about like your interest in how like being in New York City is going to affect your journey. Because I feel like in my application, I talked a lot about how certain classes that have like field trips out into the city, and also just like being in New York in general, there's a lot of opportunities you get that you wouldn't get in other places. And I think they know that. And so they really care about students who genuinely want to not just be in Columbia for what it is as a college, but also for the opportunities it offers, like because of where it is and the people who are in it. I think they also like, I think balance is really important, like having like diverse interests, and maybe that's very vague, but like just being like balanced and not and just having different opinions. Like I think there's a lot of focus on like learning from challenges and debate, and like there's a lot of stuff at Columbia that is affected by what's current affairs and what's going on in the real world. And so I think it's really important to be someone who's interested in that, and to be someone who is balanced, and also just be genuine and like show them that you are interested in the college for whatever reason you are interested, because everyone has different reasons. But I think for me, I would say the one thing that is different is that like being in New York City is something that like you definitely have to consider, and that is definitely like changes your experience. And I think they know that. And so, yeah.
Fantastic. Super. Thank you, Gia. And Samay, for you, my question is, what kind of a student do you feel is a right fit for Columbia?
I almost exactly agree with Gia. They're looking for students who love New York City and are willing to take every advantage of every part of it. New York City has like a very strong culture, of course, and that definitely rubs off on all the students every time you take the subway downtown. Um, I think the highest performing students I've seen at Columbia are people who maybe felt limited at their original hometown, and so they spend as much time meeting as many people, going out, exploring every single corner of the city, and just working very, very hard because they're like very aware of what it means to be in New York City and all the opportunities that are there. I think they're also looking for people who like put a lot of like careful thought into what they're doing. People say engineers tend to be like less good at that, where like they care less about like the philosophy of those things. But I think the people who are in Columbia's engineering are like very thoughtful about like what they're building and why they're building it and how it can actually impact people, rather than just maybe just making money. But so it's pretty much like not like MIT, where they see how well you perform as a calculator. There's a lot more focus on like actual critical thought. Like as the previous slide showed, it's definitely about thinkers. And New York City also has a very strong like hustle culture, which you'll notice if you spend a lot of time downtown. The jobs that people apply for, the clothes that people wear, everything about that is influenced by New York City. And it's more like living in New York City and taking some classes rather than like actually like going to school as your main thing.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, so you've got to really absorb and feel immersed into the New York vibe to, sort of be a student at Columbia. Super.
Yeah.
My next question to you, Samay, is, you are, of course, studying engineering at Columbia Engineering, and we know engineering is one of the most competitive pool when students are applying to college. And a very large portion of the students that are applying to college are generally engineering bound. So it'll be great for students to know a little bit on your profile in terms of what did you do in your extracurriculars, or what were your activities like, to get a good sense of what kind of an engineering student made the cut at Columbia.
Yeah. So I'll go over a little bit of my stats and experience that I had. So I came from New York, Long Island, which is about an hour away from New York City. I was mostly tech and AI, CS. I took about 12 or 13 APs. ACT was 35. And in terms of experience, I spent most of my time working on tech-related things. So it was a mix of industry experience, working jobs and internships, as well as research. So I focus mostly on computer vision, if anyone knows what that is, and which is basically AI research. And I was doing that at Columbia University with mentors from Columbia while I was in high school. I published two and a half papers. I participated in International Science and Engineering Fair, otherwise known as ISEF. I won New York State Science and Engineering Fair, Long Island Science and Engineering Fair, like I placed as well, along with a bunch of other research competitions. I was the founder of an AI education club with 100 students across 3 countries. I was an AI engineer at a Silicon Valley dev shop, R&D engineer at a Web3 startup, and then I worked at a crypto hedge fund for a little bit. And yeah, those are pretty much the stats. I think research was a pretty big thing for me. It kind of like pushed me to go more deeper into my field, and that helped with the other jobs that I was working at.
Wow, fantastic. It always amazes me the amount of things all you students manage to do through those 4 years, parallelly with, maintaining absolute fantastic academics. So I genuinely I'm just so inspired by you all. And that was a lot somewhere. I don't know how you packed so much of, that depth in those 4 years. Absolutely fantastic. Gia, my question to you is, um, given, of course, the Ivy Leagues and Columbia, known for, student bodies of brilliant achievers, right? Have you ever felt there is a pressure to perform?
I don't know. I think that there is, I think I said this when we were speaking earlier also, like, I think it is what you make of it. I definitely think that at any Ivy, and obviously at Columbia, like what Samay was saying about like the hustle culture of New York and like all of that stuff, like there's definitely people who are striving for certain things and like who are very invested in being super competitive. But I think personally, I haven't felt that pressure, like except from myself, because obviously, I think anyone who's applying to these colleges, like you are a good student and you care about your future. And so for that reason, like, yes, I feel like there is a lot of pressure to like take advantage of this opportunity that I have being in New York, being at Columbia. But I don't think that like the environment itself, at least for me, is like specifically very pressure cooker-ish. And I think why I said that it is what you make of it is because like I went to a school that was super like very pressure cooker, and I left because I could not handle that and I didn't like it. And so I think that if you're the type of person that needs like other people being very competitive, you can find that at Columbia. You can find people who like want to like make that their main focus, like competing and that's good for some people, but for me it wasn't good. And I think that I found like a group of friends and a group of people and teachers who are like willing to support me in learning the way I need to learn, which is in a much more relaxed, like in a much more relaxed way and in a much more like balanced
Collaborative way.
in a balanced way. And so I think that what I'm basically trying to say is like, if you need a pressure environment to succeed, you can definitely find that. And if you need something in the middle, you can find that. And if you need to be more relaxed, you can find that. I think it really is what you make of it in the end.
Fantastic. So again, a very important point for all our future applicants, that know yourself. It's important to know the kind of environment you may thrive in or you may not thrive in, and then seek an environment accordingly in college. I think all our students, whether it was Alina, whether it was Sonakshi, her high school journey she knew through her high school journey what is it that she wanted, a smaller environment. Alina knew through her high school journey that she'd always challenged herself so much that she wanted to be in a slightly more balanced environment. Gia also knew through that journey that she did not want to be in a pressure cooker situation. So yes, it's very important, when you are in that phase of college discussions and college listings, to know the ecosystem, academic rigor, whether it's a semester based, it's a quarter based, whether it's a competitive student body, whether it's a collaborative student body, and what is it that you seek for yourself. So, all our panelists have touched up on that, which is very, very important. Let's move the spotlight now to Pranav and Penn. Pranav, firstly, 2 a.m. I think now 3 a.m. Thank you so much. I was so worried that you will probably be somewhere sleeping away and, it's not going to be easy to catch you. So thank you so much. Pranav, again, is on campus. So let's move on to Columbia. Let's move on to Penn now. Pranav, my first question to you when we talk about University of Pennsylvania is, uh, what kind of a student do you think is a good fit for Penn?
So, I'd say if you're pretty much determined and you know what you want to do, then it really makes sense to look into like if Penn would actually help you do that, right? Because Penn works very like functionally in propelling you to what you want to do if you're very set on what you want to do. Like if you're pretty confused as you what you want to do, like coming into college and like are not really sure, which you should not be, but if you're not very sure, then Penn will thrust you into a sort of environment which you might not want to like follow, right? So thinking of Penn as just like a school where you go and like you demonstrate some interest and then you could push towards that. You have to realize that every college has its strengths and every college has its like focus points, right? So I'd say if you're somebody that is very interested in your project as an engineer, as a scientist, and are really, really focused on doing that, it's amazing for that. If you're really focused on doing business, it's amazing for that. If you're really focused on doing something science related to business, interdisciplinary is amazing. So we have a lot of interdisciplinary stuff. But if you want to come in and not really know, like, okay, this is like where I'm really interested, then you might get swayed away by like emotion on campus and like how the sentiment is. So it might not be like the best space for you. So what they look for really is that if you have like that sort of clarity coming in, ki, okay, like I'm set to do this and I will achieve this. They're looking for those kind of people more. So like that's what I've seen. Like
Fantastic. Yeah, that's why I think we've given identity, we've identified Penn as a doer. It's all about, students who really want to get cracking on something that they've started or they've done and they want to kind of take that education further, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, my next question to you is, a little bit because just for everybody to know, Pranav has completed his freshman and sophomore. He's the oldest of our panelists today. He's a rising junior. So, Pranav, you've completed a large portion of your general education requirements. So, what were they like? Did you find them challenging? Did you enjoy them? Because that is something, of course, that like we touched upon, that a US education you got to do.
so, yeah, completely. Like, I'd say nothing. Like, if you view college as challenging, I think it's a pretty bad view to college. Like, you can't view something that is like a 4 year sort of learning environment as challenging, right? Like, you have to view it from a really positive mindset. In fact, like, you're getting a fabulous 4 years, which nobody else in the world is getting, to do what you like to do. So, like, saying that, oh, like, college is challenging doesn't really add up for me. But I'd say that it's all about what you like to do and how much you like to do it. Like, let's say I took up a class on, so everybody has to take a writing seminar when they come to college. I think all the panelists mentioned that, right? So, I took this writing seminar on like Russian history, right? And like everybody in at Penn usually wants to maximize like their GPA as a function. Like everybody wants their GPA to be up top, right? But the real question is like, okay, like have I come here just to maximize my GPA or have I come here to just take some interesting classes, meet some new people, and go back to India? Because you're not coming to the US for a trade school experience. Like you're not coming to the US to become the best engineer possible. Like I'll bust your myth there. Like the IIT produces the best engineer there is on the planet, and there is no questioning that. So I took up like these interesting classes. Like I had to take some math requirements, some general requirements, and I took up like a class in law, took a class in literature, took a class in like game theory. So these classes are like what's special in the US, right? Like these classes are general requirements. You have to take them in order to like improve your learning experience, but also just like they spike your interest more, are a little difficult, but that's what it's all about, right? So
Super. And Pranal, can you share a little bit on the sort of student body vibe at Penn? Is it competitive? Is it collaborative? You mentioned sometimes, that the Wharton undergrad, can be a little bit more in terms of influential across the other undergrad colleges. So can you share a little bit on those lines?
So I break it down. It's like in undergrad, what happens is like Wharton's a vortex, fine? It's like everything's going to get sucked into there if you're not like swimming fast away from it. Basically, what Wharton shows you inside college is a 120 grand paycheck coming out of college, right? That's the brand image. They're like, here you go, here's your salary, you'll be enjoying life post college. Now, coming into college, everybody's like really entrepreneurial. Everybody's like, okay, I don't care if I'm broke out of college, I'm going to manage my way in life, this, that, right? Then you see this like pot of gold, and then you're like, okay, like why not? Well, might as well, right? So that really influences a lot of like my peers as well. So I'm doing a very, very energy intensive, like a very, very like STEM driven program. But one of my friends who is also in Viper with me, he's like recruiting for consulting, which is like strange. You would never imagine him like coming into college saying that, oh no, I want to do consulting. Like that was never his goal. Like his goal was very much just doing something for like energy, something around like solar research, which was like what he intended to do here. And now he's recruiting for consulting because it's like the Wharton vortex. Like he's like too affected because he's in a frat, all his peers are in consulting, everybody's in banking. He's like, okay, I might as well try it out. Like it's a solid way to settle my life and probably like fix it up, which is great. And I'm not denying that's not, but I'm saying that be ready for something like that when you come into like an Ivy League college or something where cultures are very corporate as well and very entrepreneurial, but it's just about like how you put yourself out there.
Fantastic, Pranav. That is some deep insight. Also, I want to kind of understand that is the student body, do you feel it's close-knit, or do you feel everybody is, I mean, collaborative versus competitive? Is it close-knit, or is it, everybody's a hustler on their own? So can you help us understand a little bit on those lines about Penn?
So more generally, and Penn as well, I'll emphasize on it. But when you come to college in the US, it's about who you choose to hang out with more than who you meet, right? Obviously, you're going to meet like a bunch of people. And what this sort of like what an Ivy League does for you is it minimizes the risk of meeting like worse company, if I put it that way. Like the chances of you meeting people that have no ambition in life is lower, right? That's basically the premise of how like Ivy Leagues select their applicants, right? Now the thing is that you come here and it's really competitive, but everybody is at the end of the day like trying to make friends in a very lonely environment, right? Because everybody is like grinding away on their stuff, but also doing like really, really different or really, really similar stuff. So if you're doing really different stuff, you have no threat to each other. So you're pretty much friends and you're trying to like push each other up. And if you're doing the same exact thing, then you might be competitive but together because you're in the best, you're in the creme de la creme. So like you're just trying to like make sure everybody rises together more than just like, okay, I got that job and you didn't. Like
that was really, really helpful. And I think in a great way, we kind of understand Penn that, what is it that it's seeking students who have a little more clarity, not coming in too confused or too open-ended, because they are then going to help you execute what you've kind of intended on doing. A student body which can be a little competitive, but at the same time, a student body where sometimes the what in of the business or the investment banking influence can be difficult to steer away from, and playing on your strengths and sticking to what you want to do can be something that one needs to be mindful about. Did I summarize that correctly?
pretty much, yeah, that's great.
Fantastic. So with that, we are coming closer to towards the wrap of this session, where I have a few important closing questions, and I would request the panelists to be as candid, as transparent and honest on this. Okay, so my first question, and we'll go, with you, Alina, and of course then Gia, Pranav, and Samir, because you all are already at college, that what is the downside of being in an Ivy League college? Alina, do you want to take that first?
I think that's a really important question because I feel like the Ivy League is very like glorified and people rarely talk about the reality of actually being in an Ivy. I don't think I wouldn't say a downside. I think it's just things to keep in mind while deciding whether an Ivy League is the right choice for you. Like I've been saying throughout, I think intention is really important when you're deciding which college you want to apply to. Like you really need to ask yourself what it is you're like looking for in your college experience and to prioritize that while you're building your college list. While I mean, I've been obviously saying that Yale is very balanced and that it is a collaborative environment, I think being in an Ivy League comes with a fair degree of pressure. You can, I think, definitely, like Gia mentioned, choose to like be like she said, there are definitely sections to it. You can very much choose to just surround yourself with people that don't sort of exude that same competitive vibe. But I think in general, compared to a non-Ivy, you would probably feel more pressure at an Ivy League. The weight of the name, I think, is a huge thing. The expectations that you feel from yourself, from people around you are very high. Everybody around you ends up being extremely intelligent, which I think while it also pushes you to be at the top of your game, it can result in imposter syndrome, which I think literally every student at an Ivy League has experienced at some point or the other. When you have so many opportunities being presented to you, again, while that's such a good thing, there's always this underlying feeling that, you know, you're not making the most of it or doing enough, which I think makes it easy to burn out if you don't like actively stop yourself from doing that. I've had the most wonderful experience at Yale, but there have been moments where it's been a lot of pressure. It has felt like, you know, do I really feel like I deserve to be here? So I think knowing what you want out of college, knowing that you can pull yourself out of a situation like that, you can manage the pressure of going to a school where, you know, so many people sort of like have this expectation of you is also an important thing for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alina. Thank you for being so candid about, students experiencing imposter syndrome. And these are things that, future as, potential kids need to be aware of. Pranav, what do you feel? Do you feel there is a downside? Have you ever experienced anything along those lines?
So never can I say that there is a downside to being anywhere, right? Like that's life. Like you're somewhere because you need to be there, or you've been put there. So
I love
I
that, Pranav, you've matured over the last 3-4 years that we've known you.
no, but all I'll say is like it's impossible for somebody to say that it's not good to be here, right? But what I will say for sure is that this applies like pretty standardly towards everything, right? Like an Ivy League is not the end of the world, and it's completely not. Like I'll just bust this myth for everybody. After you get into an Ivy League, doesn't guarantee you anything, right? Like it doesn't guarantee you anything. Like what people think, like by Ivy League ho gaya, ab to life sorted hai, it's never going to happen. So like I'll just give you that for free. Yes, it obviously improves your odds of getting into some sports which you really want to, and that really like that gears it up. But it's just like if you change your outlook to like how you apply to college and like really find like where you're actually going to be like mm, finding what you really want to find, you'd really find it like much different. You would not like always want to apply to an Ivy. Like
Yeah.
I'll give my example. I was not keen on applying to an Ivy. I'll tell everybody this that the only reason I applied to this program was because it's a dual degree, really, really interesting program. That's probably just like I'm putting it out there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pranav, for being so transparent and so honest and so spot on in your advice. Samar, my question to you is, alumni networks and influential alumni networks are a very big component of wanting to apply and be a part of an Ivy community, right? What was that one of the factors that tempted you as well? And what has your
Yeah.
experience been so far? Because we spoke about it briefly.
Yeah, I think Columbia definitely has a very like strong name, as pretty much every single one of the Ivies does. I think people tend to be like really humble about this, but I'm gonna be like honest. The name of an Ivy, the name of Columbia, or the name of Yale, or any of these schools will open doors for you unexpectedly in random interactions. I think maybe sometimes people view it as like every single interaction leads you to something else, and every single time that happens, you're talking to a person. And when a person hears your credibility and hears that you went to an Ivy League, it kind of gives them a little bit more like safety in their head about who you are. And so they'll trust you a little bit more, I would say. And if for me personally, it's opened a good amount of doors. Like, for example, you can run into an alumni of Columbia, and it's very easy to talk about Columbia. It's like easy to talk about buildings that you stayed in, like dorms, whatever, things like that. And the graduate and PhD students are also very helpful and smart in the alumni network. I think one specific example that really helped me out is I was applying to startup accelerators, and there was one called Telora, and we met the founder of the startup accelerator. We put our application in, and because we were Columbia, I felt that we had a lot more trust put in us, and we were pretty much fast-tracked like to the short list of the people who are going to be admitted into that accelerator, because we have the credentials and people will trust us and talk to us and expect us to be smart. Some people can view it as a downside that you get a lot of that trust because you have to fulfill your end of that, but I don't think it's really a downside. I think it's like, okay, now you have responsibility on you, and I think it's fair. Imposter syndrome, it happens to everybody, but I think if you're at one of these schools, you most likely deserve to be there.
I love the way you kind of put that, Samay, that yes, take responsibility for it. And pressure is everywhere, as Pranav said, but then how are you kind of tackling that? That's so important, right? My question to you, Gia, is that what are you most looking forward to in the next few years? Because you've shared some very interesting and quirky things that you're looking forward to.
So I mean, I don't know like exactly what I want to do after college, and I think that's something that's scary, but it's also like I get to kind of explore a lot of things while I'm here. And I think something I was telling you like next semester that I'm excited about, like when I joined college, like I took an acting class, and I've been very like into theater at school, but I didn't think that like, I don't know, like you just think that when you go to college, oh, like life is serious and you have to do everything related to your major and you have to get a good job, but like it's not like that. You can still explore. And so I'm really excited to like, I'm taking this like next level of that class next semester. And also like what I was saying about frontiers of science, like it really opened my eyes to like that I don't have to like only be doing literature, like humanities while I'm here. Like, and so after taking that class, which was one of the core classes that I had to take, I decided to take like a few science, like I think I'm taking one science class next semester. So I think I'm just excited to like keep exploring like different things, because I think that's something that I think we're talking so much about like the pressure of it, and there is a lot of pressure and there's a lot of like benefits that you get from being in an Ivy in the future, but like while you're there, it's still really important to focus on the fact that you're there to like explore, you're there to learn. And so I think, yeah, I'm excited mostly for just like, well, obviously figuring out like what I want to do, but like to get there, I'm excited that I get to like try a lot of different.
Explore.
Yeah.
So I love the way you said that. Yes, I think there is pressure and there is imposter syndrome. And yes, you know, it's all about academics. But as Gia said, very important to remember that college is about exploration. College is about finding your end goal, but not forgetting that let's enjoy the journey there as well. And you don't need to know what you are going to do. Let's, you know, go ahead, explore, grab those opportunities, and then see where it takes you. Sonakshi, my last question to you is, you are, of course, the only panelist who's going to now embark on the college journey, right? So what are you most excited about, you know, when you go to college, besides the exploration part? Anything in particular that you are super excited about?
I think I'm really excited about the residential life because I've never like lived in a boarding school or something like that. So that will be something very new for me. And I'm also excited for just new experiences. I want to go on exchange. So hopefully soon.
Fantastic. With that, we shall wrap up, where I am going to be, you know, so like I'm sure that today you all have inspired, motivated, given so much clarity to all future applicants. I think students have understood way deeper compared to when we started off that conversation. What is it that is a good fit for a Penn, or what is it that Columbia's, you know, undergrad is, you know, probably most important, and what is important about that, or what is Dartmouth as a campus or a culture, and what is the Yale undergrad experience like. So thank you all so much, Alina, Gia, Samay, Sonakshi, and Pranav, for taking the time, for sharing all this information, sharing the insights, preparing for all of this. And I'm sure you've left so many students inspired. With that, I would like to say once again, thank you to our audience for taking the time, for being here. The Red Pen is an educational institution, consultancy, so feel free to connect with us if you have. Shreya, if I can ask you to pull up the slide. Feel free to, if you have any queries with regards to your higher education queries, subject choices, applications, college strategies, feel free to connect with us, book an appointment. We also have introduced a very interesting service where your applications will be reviewed by top admission officers from Northwestern, Bowdoin, like the likes of Yale. So that is another additional service. If anybody in the current year cycle also wishes for availing of that service, feel free to contact us. And yes, stay in touch to all the panelists. And for our audience, I will be here next Saturday, same time, where we will be speaking to similar students, but from the new age Ivy League colleges. We are aware that off late, there's a whole new range of Ivy League colleges, USC, Tufts, Emory, NYU. So I look forward to bringing that information and those insights straight from the horse's mouth next Saturday, 11:30 a.m. See you. And thank you all. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.